Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Finn Leach. I'm the curator here. I'm of settler descent, and my family moved to the shores of Georgian Bay, just north of Shawniga, in a small town called Point of Barrel in the 1940s. I came to Nogajiwanong in 2009, and I want to begin by acknowledging that the Art Gallery of Peterborough is located on the Treaty 20 Michisaugig territory and in the traditional territory of the Michisaugig and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. I learned about this land through storytelling, and am often brought back to the history of this place as a traditional Anishinaabe portage site, a place of transition and regrouping. This is a landscape that offers a moment to rest, to debrief, to snack, a place of exchange. I'm grateful to William Kingfisher, who told me this history, which was told to him by Elder Doug Williams, and I'm honored to be trusted with this knowledge. I often think of the vulnerabilities and exhaustions declared in places like these things that are uttered when our defenses are made weary by exertion. Perhaps the kind of vulnerabilities that might be exchanged under a subject-appropriate pseudonym in print, seeking advice from someone never met in real life but trusted nonetheless on a reputation built over 12 years, a voice that wasn't there to agree, but one that was brave and bold enough to answer Elizabeth Thompson's call for honesty, true problems or feelings, understanding that disguise can be a necessary protection. Today, we'll hear letters from the archive, which I've had the pleasure of being surrounded by each day through JoEllen Brydon's paintings, and all of your wonderful voices, and some out in the crowd, on the other side of phones or QR codes. And here today, we'll have them echo through our space with Peterborough's finest voices. But it all began with JoEllen, so that's where we're going to begin tonight. JoEllen?
6 years ago, I was awarded a residency at Trent Radio through the Community Radio Fund of Canada called Your Radio is Their Stage. The project was to create recordings for this exhibition by selecting voice actors to read the letters. I wanted to use the human voice almost as a medium, an intimate way to bring to life the concerns and social issues of ordinary people in Canada during the 60s and 70s. It was incredibly moving for me when I asked friends and family, amateur and professional, to come into the studio, read a letter or appear in a film. To see every single person come to help out without question. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank all of you. I will introduce the readers afterwards. And then there will be a Q&A. But for now, here's what we came up with.
Boys and Whiskey at Pajama Party.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, 2 years ago, we moved to the city from a large city in the United States. During the early part of the Christmas holidays last year, my sister-in-law and her 3 girls visited us and then returned to the States with my twin daughters, who were to celebrate their 14th birthday on December 28th. Before their departure, I jokingly said, "Remember, Auntie Mary has my permission to spank you if you're naughty." It was to prove a prophetic message. The girls' aunt very kindly arranged a pajama party on the eve of their birthday, inviting 5 additional nieces in this age group. I gather that boys and clothes were the major topics of conversation, accompanied by blaring rock and roll music. They caused no problem, and after a snack, my husband's sister declared lights out after 11 p.m. After going to sleep, she was awakened by the sound of a ladder against the house. Her first thought was of burglars. But then she recognized a car belonging to one of the local boys. In addition to finding the attic full of those boys, she noted that several were in the possession of whiskey. ordering the boys to leave by a more conventional route, she called their parents, who promised to deal with them. Summoning the girls to the den, where a thin plywood paddle is kept, she informed them that they were to be punished, and then, after having the teenagers form a line, she put each in turn across her knee and administered 12 or more stinging spanks on their bare bottoms. Following this, my one daughter said, 10 very warm and tearful junior misses preferred to sleep on their tummies that night. They bitterly resented the paddling, but admitted they would never engage in this sort of activity again. I agreed with them at first about the spanking, but at the same time, I was glad she was alerted in time, and even the twins now admit that Auntie May's paddywhacks were justified. Yankee Mom.
All the same, it seems the girls who pay every time. I'll bet those boys didn't get spanked. And really, I don't imagine your two had much to do with the breaking and entering the house either. Young people do the most hair-raising things, don't they?
Dear Mrs. Thompson, my wife showed me the letter from the 16-year-old whose father spanked her for staying out till 3. We both heartily disapprove. Men should never spank girls, particularly ones that old. Of course, some people believe that no one should ever spank any child any time, and that's fine for them. But my wife thought that the people in that group might be interested in how we manage. Our family consists of 3 girls. When they were young, their mother used to spank them, although these times were quite infrequent. Then, when the eldest was 10, my wife asked me to do it. She no longer could because the child struggled so. I objected. It wasn't right. We had a long discussion and finally made a plan. We called the child into our bedroom. I told her she had been naughty and her mother must punish her. I told her that she was too big for across the knee and we were going to use a different method. I also told her she was to do just what her mother said, for I would be outside the door. I left. My wife then had the child remove her lower garments and lie face down on the bed. She covered her with a sheet and called me back. I stood at the foot of the bed, reached through the bars, and pulled the girl toward me so that her legs extended through. I left again, and presently through the door heard the noises of a sound spanking. My wife told me later that it was quite simple to remove the sheet, hold the child's wrists with one hand, and spank with the other. That was 4 years ago, and since then there have been 11 spankings. All about the same, except that my wife now uses a hairbrush. The kids hate it, of course, but they bear no grudge and even joke about it sometimes. Our cooperative method is evidence of parental solidarity and will work even if a 16-year-old stays out till 3. Yours truly, a spanker's husband.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, like Joanne, I am 16 and still get spanked. We have only been here a year from England, and there quite a lot of girls my age still get spanked. So perhaps that is why I am not so resentful as she is. Besides, although I hate it, Daddy is not as unkind as some of my girlfriends' fathers were in England. One used to get spanked in front of her brother. I have been spanked once while we have been here at the cabins, but Daddy did not do it here where everyone could hear. He took me out in the car, into the woods with Mommy, and made sure there was no one around before telling me to take my panties down. It hurts just as much like that in one way, but in another way it doesn't, because when people can hear, they can always tell from the sound that it's your bare bottom. And this way, no one heard. I don't like being spanked either, but I didn't resent it the way JoEllen does. Yours?
I've just read the letter from teenager's mom, and I must admit that I'm frankly amazed that any girl that age would let her mother hit her like that. I am a teenager, and I honestly would never let my mother, or my father for that matter, even touch me. And I know that none of my friends would either. I may not be right, but I think there must be something wrong with those girls if they take that from their mother. Signed, not rebellious.
With the present-day spread of juvenile delinquency and the schools plagued by rebellious children and youths, you recommend further relaxation of discipline? If this is allowed to happen, it will inevitably lead to the need for enacting laws protecting parents from abuse by their children. It could mean that children who could not be spanked under any circumstances would then be able to set the house on fire or carve the early colonial furniture. Following this line of reasoning, you would never give driving tickets to offenders because it is degrading. A child is not a miniature adult with the ability of associating cause with effect, and the apparently sophisticated punishment of no dessert or early bedtime.
I don't remember who said that you should never strike a child except in self-defense, but certainly his underlying philosophy was basically sound. The senseless beating of children as described by Spanker's husband, merely because they are neither big enough or strong enough to resist the assault, cannot be excused by any mealy-mouthed rationalization that you're doing it for the child's own good. It may sometimes be necessary to spank a very small child who persists in conduct dangerous to life and limb, and will probably have no scars if you love him or her amply and effusively immediately afterward. But the denial of human dignity and the complete lack of rapport between parents and children, illustrated by some of your correspondence, it's more than a little horrifying. It is significant that none of these sadistic parents are given to bragging about spanking a boy of 16, who in most cases will be bound, ready, willing, and able to return blow for blow. Children.
I, of course, agree that spanking older children is a mistake. But I should like to go on record as a person who, as a young child, could depend on her mother not to let her get too far out of bounds, that I am very grateful for the spankings I received. I must have been an exceptionally trying child, and my mother would warn me, "Mary, if you don't stop, you'll be crying by night." But I couldn't stop, and eventually I would get a small spanking which cooled me down and seemed to make me as pure as milk. I never in my life doubted that my mother loved me. I can just see her tired face, and I know it was true that the spanking hurt her more than it did me. Certainly in my case, it was
Dear Mrs. Thompson, may I suggest to those of your readers who continue to insist on spanking that they take a quick trip to your library. Many books are written for parents, and the librarian will help them find the one they need. Yours truly, follow the book.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, I suggest that you let the right authorities know about the child who is spanked in the woods and get her saved now. She should be removed from this household. Oh, who could call it a home? As for the father who wrote about his ritual for spanking, anyone going through that when completely calm is most peculiar. Best.
Mrs. Thompson, no wonder there are so many nervous and half-witted children in this world. If I were that daughter, I would count the days and pray to God to get me out of there. Yours truly, a never spanked mother.
I would say your children have had at least 11 traumatic experiences during the past 4 years. And I wonder what feelings actually lie under the jokes about your bizarre beatings of your children. I think you don't mean to harm the children and are doing your best, but perhaps you and your wife should have another long talk and think of ways to train your children without spanking when they are too big for such treatment. It might be well worth your while to contact the Institute of Child Study and enroll in one of their courses on discipline for adults. Fruits without labor.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, my parents have been having neighbor problems. The trouble is an apple tree which stands on the neighbor's property and drops its fruit on my parents' lawn. My father, who is 85, is unable to cut off the offending branch, and a tree man whom he consulted was reluctant to cut a branch from the neighbor's tree. My father has been putting the fruit back over the fence. Apart from the fact that this policy engenders poor neighborly relations, what is the legal position regarding the fruit? Sincerely, Pitt.
I believe the fruit falling from a tree which overhangs a person's property belongs to the person who owns the property over which it hangs. So, your father should arrange a lovely fruit bowl and enjoy the good fortune that he has such bounty without having to spray, prune, or thin. Parents feel they have failed daughter who decided on lesbian life.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, my husband and I are in a state of shock. Our 26-year-old daughter came home for the weekend, especially to have a talk with us to tell us she is a lesbian. We don't know how to accept or understand it and have spent every minute since going over things in our lives that might have caused this to happen to our child, and we can come up with nothing. Our 3 other children are normal in every way, so we can't imagine what went wrong with our second oldest. She was always a tomboy, loved softball and sports of every kind, but we assumed she would develop other interests as she got older. She has, of course, but never an interest in boys. She has had a close childhood girlfriend with whom she roomed all through university. They then went off to Europe together and have shared an apartment ever since. We still thought nothing of it, because they've been friends for so long. She said she wanted to tell us that she has realized for some years, since university, that her feeling for her friend is more than just friendship, and that the relationship became that of lovers during their travels in Europe. She says she is happy and can't think of anything more wonderful than to spend the rest of her days with this other young woman. But we have just felt sick ever since, particularly my husband, who feels that he has failed her in some way that he can't put his finger on. Perhaps some of your readers have coped with this situation. Can you recommend anything to read on the subject? We are just shattered. Sincerely yours, Gay Mother.
As no one knows what causes homosexuality, you might as well stop blaming yourself and start accepting the fact that your daughter is among the 1 in 10 who are in this category according to the Kinsey report. Of particular interest to you is one book called Lesbian Women by Del Martin and Phyllis Leon, Glide Publications, 1973. It's an account of a long-term lesbian couple, of their lives and leadership of a gay women's group. As your daughter has accepted her own particular sexuality, a large part of the battle is won. She probably needs no counseling. When you and your husband come to accept it, and there is little else you can do, your daughter's particular place in the family will be secured. Mother's housekeeping drives daughter wild.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, I hope you take letters from teenagers. I am 14 and my little sister is 10. Our problem is our mother. I can only describe her as lazy. In our house, my father gets up first and makes coffee for everyone. We two girls get our own cereal and make our lunches for school. When we leave for school, our mother is still in bed. When we get home from school in the afternoon, she is up and dressed. The breakfast dishes have obviously just been washed because they are still wet in the drainer, and a load of laundry has just been put in the washing machine. As soon as I walk in the door, my mother sends me out again to get something at the store that she needs for dinner. I resent this, as I have been working hard at school all day and would like to relax a little before I start my homework. I don't see why she can't shop for things like that during the day. She doesn't go out to work. When I get home, my little sister has been put to work peeling potatoes or folding laundry. Recently, she is taken to stopping off on her way home at a friend's house after school. She likes it because her friend's mother gives her homemade cookies. It is not so much the number of chores I have to do that I object to. A lot of my friends have mothers who work, and they help a lot around the house too. But their mothers aren't at home all day messing things up again. My mother drops her clothes where she takes them off, never cleans the bathtub ring after herself, never makes her bed. I change her sheets on weekends when I clean my own room. If I bring a friend home after school, I never know what I will find. My mother never clears the table between meals or wipes the counter when she makes a sandwich. She does knitting and sewing and never thinks to pick up the bits of yarn and fabric that fall on the floor. Frankly, I'm so embarrassed that I just don't bring friends home anymore. In another 5 years, I shall be off to university, and I can hardly wait to leave home. Do you think there is anything at all that could be done to make life at home more bearable in the meantime? Yours truly, embarrassed daughter.
Perhaps you could get your mother to see a doctor about her sluggish metabolism. It could be that she is low in thyroid and might need some medication. People sometimes drift along in semi-depressed state, not realizing that there's something physically wrong with them. Your mother's sloppy housekeeping, however, is more likely to be a result of her early training. And although you seem to have learned to be tidy on your own, some people have to be pushed to it. I don't think getting something from the store after school is too much to ask, nor do I think it will kill your sister to peel potatoes. However, it would be nice to come home from school to a neat home and a lively mother. I hope you will continue to help as much as you can, but try to get the root of your mother's apparent fatigue. Perhaps she would make more of an effort if she knew how you both feel. You do not mention her personality, but I gather that she is generally kind and good to you, just lazy. Those pushy big kids at Halloween defended.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, I am writing in some anger now that Halloween is well over again and we can relax. I wonder if it isn't time for us to ban this destructive and basically greedy holiday. We live in an area swarming with children, and the hordes of them coming to the door begging has me exhausted by the time it dies down. Some of these youngsters are as big as I am. Big lunks of kids looking for a handout. The little ones are not so bad, say up to about 7. But it's interesting how soon they forget that it's supposed to be a masquerade and start thinking it's a way to get candy. I gave out 150 bags of candy, and I'll swear some of them came as many as 3 times. Although it's hard to be sure. Well, most tried to grab more than I was giving. My daughter heard some big boys bragging on the street that they had dumped their bag at home twice and were going around the best houses for a 3rd time. My sister, who lives in a small town, says the destruction there by gangs of teenagers at Halloween is terrible. She says valuable windows are scored by sharp objects, wagons are overturned, and even one Volkswagen was turned upside down in a farmer's barn. Gates, which are costly, are literally stolen, and of course, countless windows are soaked. It also seems to bring out the nuts out of the woodwork in some places, the ones who put razor blades in apples and poison the candy. Let's call a halt. Or start a movement to limit it to children up to 7 or 8, or only to go to people they know, or just those on their own block. This way, everyone would be giving the same amount of candy. It would be less burdensome, and more real fun. It might even return to the original trick-or-treat idea, with the children performing in some small way. What do others think? Sincerely, Spooked.
I find the big kids as poignant as the very small, shy ones. It is the last kick of childhood, and there's so much agony beforehand about whether to get dressed up and go out, which they eagerly want to do in their secret heart of hearts, or whether it would be unseemly. The sheer quandary makes them anxious, nervous, and those who do head out might come on a little brash, rude, and pushy just to hide their shame. Sometimes they're insulted by people and have to give it up and go home. Your idea of limiting the visits to houses in their own city block, or at least the houses of people they know, is certainly sound. The real fun is getting the kids to talk. I remember one little girl, dressed all in black with a pointed hat, who said, "I'm a witch, and I'm afraid of witches, and I'm afraid to go out in the dark. I'd be afraid of me." Women rebel at wearing bras, burn them in barbecue.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, do you realize that you may be responsible for revolutionizing Canadian dress customs? I have long resented having to wear a bra, but never had the courage to do anything about it until I read the letter from the woman who was visiting in New Orleans and your comments. I mentioned it to the girls in my bridge club and found the same attitudes. We decided that if the New Orleans girls could do it, so could we. So we burned our bras in the barbecue and quit wearing them for once and all. Our husbands were startled at first, but now all are in agreement with us. So thank you. And we hope that other Canadian girls will get up the courage too. Sincerely yours, Braless.
Heavens! And you burned them. Well, with winter just around the corner, you'd better stock up in vests or something to cut the stormy blasts. Report card disillusions little girl who dreams of being a horse.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, I recently read Scott Young's column about the new versus the old report cards in the city of Toronto. Long an admirer of his, I was shocked to see his pitifully uninformed and inhumane attitude on this subject. I gather he has raised 2 families and still does not fully comprehend the depth of despair some children reach because of this antiquated system of marks from grade 1 on. We have 2 children attending a Toronto school, one particularly well adjusted to school and able to get high marks. He takes to memory work or rote learning with ease. His sister, on the other hand, is a child who dreams a lot and imagines what it would be like to be dead or a bird. I knew she was not doing well in school from a chat with her teacher, who says she has a creative type mind and is young for her age. She was always full of confidence, knowing she would be a great dancer one day, or maybe a horse, until this year. She came home at Christmas with her grade 2 report card hidden behind her back so she could share the thrill of counting her A's with her mom. She came in the door, eyes dancing and cheeks flushed, and said, "Guess what I've got?" I guessed the usual things: a cow, a snowball, a dead mouse. "My report card. How many A's do you think I got?" I opened it, and together we found not only no A's, as I feared, but no B's, nor C's. She had all D's and 1 E. 5 were circled with red crayon. She buried her face in my side and sobbed. What does a mother tell a 7-year-old who not only doesn't get A's, but not even B's or C's? I comforted her by saying, "It doesn't have a place to give you an A for kindness and sharing." She wept. "It means I'm not good in school, and I try all the time to be good." She would like to quit school and never go back. She would like to live on a mountain like Heidi with goats and be taught by her grandfather. The superior attitude of her brother, who loves school and gets good marks, is not helping. Grading children like apples is crushing for them. I have talked with a number of teachers on this subject, and all feel the same way. Finding out in this way that she is not an A student has done nothing to help my daughter to knuckle down and do better. It has clarified that although she has been trying her best, she does not measure up at school. And it has only helped to dash her hopes for a great future as a horse. The stigma has spilled over to the schoolyard, where she is made to feel that she is a lesser being, despite our attempts to build her confidence. Any teacher will tell you that the cut and dried categories on a report card are not only destructive, but they are not a full assessment of a child's progress at school. Let us hope that the new card on trial for 2 years will not be given up because of people such as Mr. Young, who do not realize what they say. Saddened mother.
I don't think it's being soft to do away with marks. It is just the graded report card is not accurate, nor is it doing its job that it's supposed to do. Let us hope that the new card does better. Best of all would be not to have a report card, just the occasional note home saying, "Work needed on arithmetic, see that she does page 52, or Johnny is a whiz at all subjects." I've always felt the system of grading children, especially in the first several years at school, is particularly antiquated. Why a boy with poorly developed small muscle control, and thus a bad printer or writer, should be graded for something he could do nothing about is silly. For the same reason, a child who has trouble with arithmetic doesn't need a D on his report card to tell him he's having trouble with arithmetic. Nor do his parents need a D to tell them he's having trouble with his arithmetic. They are only too aware of the problem. Incentives should come not from trying to achieve A's. The incentive should come from the sheer delight of learning. Some children are more easily delighted than others in this way. But your little girl, with her wonderful imagination, could have been tantalized if the world of learning had been opened up to her in a palatable manner and not accompanied by a string of D's. New guitar entices mother and daughter alike.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, I'm 10 years old and I've got a problem. I was working helping my brother on his paper route last year and saved up some money to buy a guitar. I got a guitar out of the catalog for $29 and I really love it. But my problem is that my mother keeps taking it away from me when I'm trying to practice because she wants to learn to play too. I was away when the guitar first came, so she used it for the whole first week and learned how to play 2 chords. Now I can't get it away from her. Whenever guests come in, she takes it away from me and starts playing her 2 chords and singing and embarrasses everyone. Her voice isn't too good, and it doesn't make her guitar playing sound good. I've asked her to buy her own guitar, but she says there's no need. It's a waste of money. Everyone in the family is sick of her singing, including my father, but he won't say anything to her. How can I ever learn to play this guitar? Sincerely, Strummer.
I think that if your mother is as tone deaf as you say she is, she will eventually tire of her newfound hobby. Be patient, and I'm sure you will get your guitar back by and by. Loan action can reduce littering.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, I am deeply concerned about ecology and our vanishing wildlife. Pollution is everyone's responsibility, and I do my small bit to prevent it from getting any worse. But while I'm carefully measuring out my non-phosphate detergent, I'm thinking of the factories down the street that pour more filth into our waterways in a day than I could do in a lifetime. When I return our pop bottles to the supermarket, I'm invariably met with resistance. No one can be bothered with empty bottles. One day, I waited at least 5 minutes while 2 clerks argued about whose turn it was to serve me. Finally, they counted my bottles. There were 12, and rang up my 60 cents. When I insist to my children that they get out of the car and put their paper cups and chip bags in the garbage can, they point to a car parked alongside where the occupant is emptying the ashtrays onto the grass. One day, I was washing and squashing tin cans and tying bundles of paper to be delivered to local collection points. My wife asked me why I bothered. In her words, "You are only one. What good will it do?" And I must confess, there are times when I feel I'm fighting the battle against pollution single-handedly. Instead of constantly telling us what a cesspool we live in, perhaps the news media should begin highlighting the efforts of individuals, groups, and hopefully governments who are trying to remedy the situation, thereby helping people like me to believe that my tiny contribution is worthwhile. Incidentally, how do the drink manufacturers justify their continued use of disposable bottles and cans? Yours truly, Anxious.
In answer to your last question, people buy pop in cans because cans have not been banned, so the manufacturers do not have to justify themselves as long as profits are up. You can help by writing to the companies offending. Do not belittle your efforts because you feel alone in this fight against pollution. You are influencing your family, no doubt your neighbors, and others you talk to about this subject. Most change starts with 1 or 2 and then gradually grows. It was one woman who sat down on the bus in Alabama because her feet were tired, and so started the civil rights movement in the United States. And next time you read your newspaper, check how many stories are telling the sort of thing you want to hear. People's fight against pollution, struggles for social reform, marches for peace. I don't think you notice how many positive stories there really are. How many people are striving like you to straighten out a messy world. 12-year-old wants to talk too, says nobody gives her a chance.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, my mother has told me to write to you about my problem. I'm 12 years old, a girl, and I have 3 older brothers who boss me around all the time. But the thing that gets me mad, that I'm writing to you about, is this. No one ever listens to me when our family is at dinner and everyone is talking. They all argue and shout about politics, school, religion, and things. Every time I say something, one of my brothers interrupts just as though I wasn't even there. Then they go on and on about their stuff, and I could scream. I've tried shouting louder than the others, but Dad sends me away from the table. I try talking about what they're talking about, but they never let me finish a sentence before they're off on their own again. It's as though as I didn't belong in the family. I just want to run away and find a place where people will let me talk too. My mother says I'm not to try to get my way by being loud and crying. She says I'll get in on the conversation when I'm older and understand better what's going on in the world. But I like to talk about horses, and I don't want to wait until I'm older. My mom says I should learn to listen to others, so I will learn from them. But I'm too bored to listen. I just want them to listen to me for a change. Sometimes Mom talks to me, but the others never stop what they're saying to hear what we say. And Dad hears me too, but I can tell he's just being patient with me and would rather listen to the boys. This might not seem like much of a problem to you, but it sure is to me. I get so mad I could run away from home sometimes. How can I get the boys to treat me like a person? Yours truly, Jenny.
Your brothers are at the age when they are enjoying more grown-up discussion and debate. So they're not going to take a little sister seriously until she's old enough to have some ideas on worldly subjects. Your mother is right. You'll just have to learn to listen to all the exciting talk and bide your time a while longer. When you get into high school, you'll be as much a part of the dinner time jabber as the boys. Right now, you must be careful not to get loud and shrill, trying to compete against impossible odds, or the boys will not respect you. Your parents might work you into some topics by controlling the debaters, showing them that you are special to the group too, and must be heard. But don't expect them to do this all the time. You have to earn your way by holding your temper, listening to others, and seizing your chance when it comes. Then, if you lose the reins, don't fly off the handle. Get them to like you by not being a brat. Learn to be good-natured. Your turn will come. Talkative Jenny defended by many. Jenny certainly drew strong support from women who felt, as you do, that my advice to her was not more vehemently on her side. All thought the parents in error for not controlling the boys' conversation to let their sister express herself equally. All felt that they should listen to Jenny, but none seemed to expect that she should do the same. I did say to Jenny, your parents might work you into some topics by controlling the debaters and showing them that you are special to the group and must be heard, but don't expect them to do this all the time. You have to earn your own way by holding your temper, listening to others, and seizing your chance when it comes. This did not seem to be enough for the correspondents, one of whom wrote, I agree with everything you tell her, but I think the parents have a responsibility to give her the floor part of the time. She's 1/4 of the children, even if she is younger and a girl. This is Jenny's inning, and here's another lick in her favor. This girl obviously needs protection from her brothers. Her brothers equally obviously need lessons in manner and basic consideration towards other people. If they do not learn this within the confines of their own home, they will not learn it elsewhere. They are also likely to receive a rude shock when they go out into the world and find the ability to listen is at least as valued as the ability to hold forth in conversation. From Weston, one woman cheered, "Don't scream, Jenny. I'm on your side. Brothers can be boors. I know." School dance for 13-year-old girls makes mother feel old.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, what do you think of 12 and 13-year-olds going to dances? The public school where my daughter attends grade 8 has dances once a month, complete with a band, a high school rock group. And it seems to me silly that little kids would be going to mixed parties so soon. I'm hot on the subject because my husband and I just chaperoned one of them, and it was a sheer nightmare. The noise of that band would split your ears.
Half the time, the band skulked and refused to play, thank goodness, while the place seethed with outraged teeny boppers. First, they wouldn't play unless we allowed in their 18-year-old friends who were hanging around sullenly outside. We stood firm to the rule that no one over 17 attends. The kids themselves were as weird a spectacle as I've seen in many a time. There were 10-year-olds throwing themselves around like pint-sized sex queens. One big fat girl wore a tight lots of fastless top with tight jeans and writhed and wriggled in front of the band like a stripper. I can't see that it's particularly good for those kids to play the dating game at such a young age. And yet, the free, uninhibited way they get along together, so much healthier than when we were that age and tried to hide our feelings. It was a revelation to see little girls unashamedly asking little boys to dance and little boys complying. What they do on the dance floor is something else again. Some of them get right out and dance alone. A couple were doing handstands and cartwheels among the gyrating bodies around them. One girl who wore a marvelous big hat danced every dance with girls or with herself. She had a ball and went home glowing. Some of them spent the whole evening rushing up and down, looking for one another, carrying secrets, hardly going near the dance floor, but looking for intrigue, especially the kind that was brewing outside with the 18-year-olds. Why would big guys like that want to go to a little kid's dance anyway? There was even a smoking intermission when they were allowed to go outside during a 10-minute period for a cigarette. A cigarette! At a public school. I tell you, I went home feeling about 1,000,000 years old, and I had always thought I was fairly up to date. Do you approve of all of this? Wondering.
I don't know. But I guess it doesn't matter whether we do or not. It's happening. Everything has changed. And it is the case in every upheaval. Some of it is not particularly good. Bizarre, in fact. One hates to see childhood end so soon. But it is nice that the day of the wallflower is over. Family advisor is gone, but her advice still rings in ears.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, I thought you'd like to hear about our family advisor, our Aunt Martha. She offered everyone insight and advice on any problem, whether the little boy next door, who she taught to care for his toys. Now, Josie, here's a nice new ball for you. Look after it. Keep it in its own place under the stairs, and it will always be there when you want it. Or the policeman writing a ticket. Officer, how do you know that poor man hasn't had a lot of trouble? Why don't you just give him a warning? Or the gang of young hoodlums about to fight with chains and sticks. Boys, this is no way to get along. Love one another. Go home at once and you'll live to fight another day. Often, members of the family did not appreciate Aunt Martha's lectures or became impatient when her admonitions became repetitive. And it is certain large numbers of store managers and clerks would have been far happier had she not drawn their attention to shoddy merchandise and bad merchandising techniques. Telephone company personnel, gas company workers, and car dealers came under her jurisdiction. She formed her own Consumers Association with a membership of one long years before the Canadian Consumers Association was even thought of. No one was too big for her to tackle. She wasted little time on the girl at the counter, demanding at once to speak to the president. Her family refused to go into a store with her when she was returning defective goods. But she had a duty to right wrongs, improve shoddy practices, and square up the world, just as she squared up her house to perfection every day. Members of her family, who both deplored and adored her, knew another dimension her outside world never saw, Aunt Martha's way of speaking her mind in verse. She must have remembered every poem from childhood and every song. Almost all occasions brought forth either a mournful folk song or a snatch of verse. Only a bunch of violets, violets so blue, and fresh and fair and dainty, they sparkle with the dew. Her advice to parents who harangue their lazy teenagers to get out and get a job. I'm a little lamb, I love to frisk and play, but I'll grow up and settle down someday. She had one for siblings whose rivalry takes the form of violence. I have a little sister, and I am often told that she is far more dear to me than a great big pot of gold. As the children squabbled on the floor over some game, Aunt Martha would stand over them, hands on hips, admonishing them relentlessly with a poem sometimes 10 verses in length, in a melodramatic voice. Once, when her daughter was in hospital, the situation recalled an ancient Irish dirge, and Aunt Martha burst into loud song. She died last month in the midst of her rounds, comparing prices of chickens in her neighborhood stores. No doctor could help her, and it was too late for the minister. We will miss her sorely, but her advice still rings in our ears in verse, and we are properly chastened. The death notice seemed so inadequate for such an enormous personality that I thought your column might be a suitable forum to tell about her. After all, you are in the same business. Sincerely yours, a niece.
I'm just sorry I can't do it in verse. Thank you for telling me about your aunt. My sympathies to you and the family. Hold on to humor until she's home.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, my husband's mother is coming from England to visit us in January, and I need some advice before she arrives. We have been married for 7 years, and she has managed a trip every year since then. Generally, she stays a month, by the end of which I'm climbing the walls. She seems to come with the sole purpose of setting us straight about how to do everything. There is nothing in this country that is done properly as it is in England. No one here has any soul or heart. We are money-broking, materialistic nothings. The children are spoiled rotten and have no manners, and her son should go back to England where he can have a decent job in the civil service. Luckily, my husband does not take his mother seriously at all and loves Canada, me, and the children just as we are. But he is not listening to this day in and day out for a solid month, and I find my patience wearing thin toward the end of the 3rd day of her visit. All this is bad enough, but what really gets under my skin is when she goes over my work and cleans my house right in front of me, as though it hadn't been done at all. I've sat in my clean kitchen, drinking my tea after dinner, and watched my mother-in-law sweep the floor I've just swept, wipe the counter over again, go over the stove with her thumbnails, scratching imaginary spots off it, and even washing the teacups I've just rinsed. Mrs. Thompson, I'm not going to win prizes for housework, but I've always kept the place clean and neat, and it is completely uncalled for to have Granny act as though I'm a slob. I kid you not. One morning we were sleeping in until 9 or so, as we had been out the night before. I heard something scratching just outside the door in the hall. I was sure it was a mouse and went out to investigate. It was Granny, scratching with her long thumbnail, tiny speck she noticed on the floor. I think it wouldn't be so bad if she would leave the children alone. She is on their back all the time about their manners. Hasn't anyone told you to stand when a lady enters the room? She will ask our 6-year-old son. Then she plies him with candies, which she carries in her purse. Can you suggest how to handle this woman when she comes in a couple of weeks? I wish I could get through it all with some kind of grace, but it's pretty hard when you're being put down all the time. Daughter-in-law.
Your husband's mother sounds like a scream. And I think you should capitalize on the situation by depending heavily on your sense of humor and keeping her hopping with work. When she arrives, tell her how glad you are that she's come, as you know she's such a terrific mender and you have a bushel of socks for her to do. Then let her at the linen closet straightening it for you and repairing sheets. Take your mother-in-law lots of places so that you're not stuck in the house together too long. Pick her expert brain at cooking, baking, shopping, and all those jobs a person needs a break from once in a while. Enjoy your sabbatical and keep laughing. When is old? 77-year-old broadcaster asked.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, R.E., your June 15 column with the letter from the woman who signed herself. So who's old? I had lunch that day with 2 ladies. A good lunch with champagne to start, ice cream to finish. I was the baby at 77. Our combined age was 242. After lunch, we went back to work. Crusty, seasoned broadcaster.
You're not old, nor are your companions, one or both of whom, from my calculations, must be over 80. I've been a fan of yours for a lot of years, but that doesn't make me old either. Who knows when old is? I think it's when people die, but are still able to move. I hope you never reach that stage, and I hope you'll be having champagne lunches with the girls for 77 more years. Mother's one wish that son call home. Dear readers, I had written our annual collection of Christmas wishes for Canadians from various members of my family when a letter came in at the last minute so directly from the heart that it made our desires seem trivial by comparison. The problem is as old as time, yet as urgent as today. It's from a mother. A prayer, really.
Dear Mrs. Thompson, please print this. It's our only chance to reach a wandering, beloved, lost son. I'm speaking for all the waiting mothers in the world. Please ask our sons and daughters somewhere on earth to phone home. Or write airmail. That's all we want for Christmas. That's all we want for 1975. That's all we want. And please, son, phone until you reach us. Collect is fine. Or leave a number with the operator for us to call. We'd love it. We pray daily for us all. We need you. In a world of hate, here is love. Have you learned your lesson? We have too. Twice as sadly, that no quarrel is worth the suffering of eternal separation. It's never too late to try again. While we're alive, phone home, write home, or best, come home. We love you. Sincerely waiting in Woodstock.
My family agrees with me that your wish is far more important than theirs, and we decide to give you this space for Christmas. I would like to join with you in your prayer for lost children and to add my hopes that Canadians can cope with the celebration without loneliness, despair, or hunger. I sincerely hope that your boy calls you today.
Did everybody come back up who's reading? Wait, everybody? Everybody who is reading, can you come back up? Everybody.
Well, heavens, I wanted to introduce everybody. As the rest of the night here. Okay. So, over here we have Sue Newman and Christine Diaz and Leslie Ashton. Leslie is a lifelong friend, my lifelong friend, and she knew my mom very well, and I think she just rocked that cars. And Brad Brackenridge.
Yeah, hold your.
Holly Bennett. Rochelle Andrew, who had a very difficult role. She agreed to do it on tape, but not in public. But what a good sport. Ava Barlow, who Ava's high school. She was in high school when we first recorded this, and I thought, and I thought it was a good idea to ask a bunch of them if they'd like to audition for Jenny, because it was such an important role, and so Ava got that role. My daughter, Eva Fisher, who's been huge in this whole exhibition. She's the technical director, and she's been, held my hand throughout and involved since the very beginning. And Laurel Pollack, Laurel was the coach and the person who suggested to me that I do the Trent Radio broadcast and the residency, and so she coached me all along, and she taught me how to use the equipment and was there for every single reading, and it was huge fun. Yeah. And so, yeah. My daughter Georgia Fisher, who's also a huge help with everything. She'd just wander in, and I'd ask her to do whatever weird thing, and she'd just do it without hardly knowing that she was doing it. She's in one of the films, and I remember the first time first take we did. Eva and I dressed her up, and she was thinking about something else. She had some other thing going on, and we dressed her all up, and she hardly noticed. She did the role beautifully, even. And Shannon Taylor, Shannon Taylor, and Matt Vandermeulen, and Matt is my daughter Eva's husband is Brad Vandermeulen, and Brad is and his grandfather are in one of the films. And I like this one because I like the fact that Brad was there. He was playing the son. He was with his grandfather, and his brother Matt was his voice. Susan Spicer. And Charlie Stavely Watson. You guys need to. Mara Stavely Watson. You guys did such a great job. And you all did it. Oh, get over here. Rob Fortin. Don Hoffman. Is there anyone else?
Phil Oakley is still there.
Oh, okay. Phil Oakley. Oh, that's too bad. Yeah. Anyway, thank you all. That was such a good job.
I'm always aware of how long an artist spends with the work that ends up being here, connecting with you guys for, I don't know, short, long time, multiple times, I don't know. Are there letters that are somewhere rolling around in the back of your brain that are not here? Are there letters that are here that roll around in your brain to the point where you're like, get out of there?
Yes, there were hundreds of letters. It took me a long time. I felt like I had to go through most of them. I don't think I've been through all of them. And every time I went back, I found another letter about, every time I go back, I find another letter about Jenny. I was Jenny. And so yes, they had to be visual. They had to be something I could do visually, and they had to have a good story. So it was sort of that. And there were some that I really hated leaving out, and there are some in a scrapbook upstairs because they're not visual, but I thought they were important. And there's tons more like that.
I also want to acknowledge all of the work of the people that I didn't end up getting to work with that much because you did so much work before the work got to me. Eva, thank you. Eva made the phones work. Yeah, sorry. I prefer girls, so there we go.
I had the idea to put them in the phones, just that really tactile feeling of a phone. And so I was mucking around with like putting little speakers in the headset. And Brad stepped in and was like, well, why don't you just connect the speaker wire to? So he really figured it all out and then managed to do it with the various phones that we had.
We thrifted. We went thrifting. But Eva did technical. She did the QR codes and anything technical in this show. I did not do.
I'm very used to pinch hitting with the technical, but it came out ready to go in, which was really incredible. And I think, of course, we have to spend time talking about the Trent Radio experience. So, and I also got to sort of watch your mastery here when you guys were doing the run through, and you just did such a good job of stage direction. It is not a world that I get to go. It was great. It was great. So I am curious to know, like, what was it for you that made you encourage JoEllen to take this chance?
Well, thanks to Trent Radio, who does really great work in our community and has for over 50 years. They had a program, a residency, to train artists who worked in anything but audio to try it out. And people applied, and JoEllen did, and I think it was it was a perfect application, first of all, because it really needed some audio. And I think Trent Radio is a lovely hub. It's a community hub. It has been and will be, and so we were able to bring in so many people into this little studio, this professional studio, during COVID, right? The organizing of it was something else. But it was really quite wonderful for everyone to have some people who are actors, local actors in town, to people who are your friends, and for them to feel comfortable to read the letters, to be recorded, and for you to learn from scratch how to edit, how to record, all of it. You ended up going home, and I know you'd call me, I'd be like, you can do it. And you did. So congratulations. Yeah, it was really incredible. Okay.
And how was it to be the voice of your friend?
My friend's mother.
Your friend, sorry, yes.
And-
Your friend's mother.
And my mother's best friend.
Okay, that's the.
Yeah, that's.
How was that?
Leslie's mother was my mother's best friend.
They were newspaper women together.
Yeah.
And we spent summers together because Jean would share a cottage. So she was like a beloved aunt, like it was like family. But you know, you can tell by the Thompson, she had a little bit of a dry, little bit of a biting side to her. So kind of, I just was like, is Jean gonna do something for her? You know, like taking on Jean felt quite. Yeah, it was hard. It was not something I stepped in easily. And I was like, Joe was just sure. And I was like, why are you so sure that? And so the thing I really thought about is this was a kind of a distillation of Jean. You know, Mrs. Thompson's a little more buttoned up and things like that. So I kind of thought of her that. It was like, this was her advice. But, you know, and if Joe tells you to do something, as all of these people, you do it, right? Like, so yeah. So I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed learning. I enjoyed being in the studio, and I enjoyed also that Joe kept saying, "Oh, I don't know, you do it. I don't be a director," and then she'd go, "No, that's wrong." Okay, it's like, and it didn't take her long. Did you notice that? She was very like, "Oh," she goes, "I don't know anything about acting. Can you do it more?" So I enjoyed that part too, watching her come out as the director.
Yeah. I know we're going to talk more about it when we do the catalog launch, which I will tell you all to come back for. But I am curious that we just heard the many letters, including Jenny, and I know you mentioned that Jenny is you. Can you talk a little bit more about that and about what it was like to happen upon that?
Yeah, that was a strange one. After my mom passed away, I decided to do this project, and she had given me all of the boxes, and they were a mess, like boxes of hundreds and hundreds. She kept every one of them, and there was handwritten letters and newspaper copy and yellow copy paper, and so I thought, this is great. This is like a treasure trove of stories, and I like to work with stories. So I started going through them and selecting the ones, and then I read the Jenny letter. This was, I don't know, weeks in. I read the one that Ava read so beautifully today, and I thought, holy shit, this is me. I knew, because when she. So, and after that, I kept finding other letters and they were often signed about Jenny, and I knew they were me because of the detail. She always included a lot of detail that was undeniable, and so that was very emotional for me because I found. It was difficult because she and I had a problematic relationship at a certain time in our lives, and I could see this. It was interesting how it went when when I was littler. The columns told a story that was kind, and as I got older, you heard it, and so. I had to take long breaks because it was very difficult, very difficult. And the other thing was that I thought, this is so interesting that so many of these letters are me. And I thought, why Jenny? Where'd she get the name Jenny? And then I remembered that was my favorite name when I was a kid. My dog was called Jenny. And so I thought, how do I
how do I fit this into the exhibition? This is a whole other story. This isn't what I had planned, and should I? And I didn't want to. I had to be very gentle about it, and so I ended up just including a lot of the stories in the paintings, and it took a long time to process, but eventually it came right. Somehow it worked.
I'm constantly looking this way. If there are hands, wave. I'm good. Thank you guys so much. Is there anything for you? Because I know that the voices, so you guys did all this work of recording a couple of years ago? 6 years ago.
This project has been huge. There
Yes.
was all the research, and then there was the recording project, which took like months. It was about 8 months, I think. Yeah. And then some of the paintings I did as I went along.
Like when the project started, Grandma had died, just died. And so it was really daunting at first to look through all of these materials. Like you were really beginning this project in Greek. And then you had the experience of finding Jenny as well. So that just was a very complicated emotional project. Yeah. And so navigating that, but then also, piece by piece, bringing in the audio 6 years ago with the video a couple of years ago, like there's really such a huge volume of work, and seeing this exhibition, I talked with a lot of people who they feel like they have to come again and again because it's just so dense, like there's so much here. And that was just your meticulous research and your meticulous work and your vision, and for each piece of this, for the residency at Trent Radio, she had such a vision of what voice she wanted for each part. Like she knew exactly what this person sounded like, and for the videos as well, it was this casting was just really realizing things that you'd been thinking about for years. So I'll say, like, from my perspective, it's been so satisfying, come together. And at the beginning, when we're the grief swirling, it was really hard to envision, but you just kind of knew, like, seeing your process of just pulling all of these things together into this beautiful thing. It's been incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to, another thing that I thought was important was Leslie's mom, Pauline, is still with us. And throughout the project, I was able to, especially when all the stuff happened, when I was finding the letters, I could go and talk to Pauline, and she had such a great perspective on my mother. She knew that she could be difficult, but she loved her. And they both had so much fun together. She was just telling me the other day that, I miss your mom. I miss the... But she was great because she could put a lot of things into perspective for me as I was, I told her about everything that I found and all the things that, some things she would remember and some things she didn't remember, but she talked a lot to me though. Any other questions?
I am. Sam, skip. Yeah, wait. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't developer. So it's part of question or a part suggestion. So you're saying with Jenny that your mother wrote letters as you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a whole other story here for like there's a whole other show, or like a theater show, or something.
Yeah. Do you want to do it?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not a cashier, but it's just so fascinating. As you were saying, Eva, it's just the layers are so evident in the moment when you walk in. And now there's this whole other aspect sitting on top of it. It's just fascinating. Yeah, so thank you.
It was an important part of the craft for an advice columnist to sometimes make up their own letters. She would sit there with us and say, write to me. She needed content. And especially when she worked in the women's department of the Globe, but when they canceled the women's department at some point, so she was just randomly in the caper, and she didn't have as many, so she had to, she didn't have as much content because it wasn't a regular type of a thing, and so sometimes quite often, a friend, Pauline, would write to her, or friends would write to her. I never wrote to her. Honestly, I read this thing and did I write this? Because if I wrote it, I certainly didn't see the answer, and I was pretty surprised about that. But it was an important part of the. Sometimes she'd write a letter to introduce a topic to get other people writing in about the same thing that could begin in a thread that she wanted to talk.
I saw another hand. Yeah.
I just leave you all.
Okay, great. We're gonna still do this just for the video.
Oh, sure.
Hi, John.
Hi, Joe. What a fabulous show. So multi-layered with visuals and with media and with the voice and using the elements of telephone and everything. What do you think G would say if she was here, she saw what we will create?
What do you think she'd say? John's a family member.
I think she'd say something like, "Oh, JoEllen, it's such a big fuss, I don't know."
You were exactly.
What do you think?
It's so hard. Leslie asked me the other day, would it have been difficult to do it if she were still alive? And I said, absolutely, yeah. She was taught to be humble and modest. She didn't want to draw attention to herself, and I think she would. That part of it, she would have some problems with. But I wish she were here to see. After she stopped Elizabeth Thompson, there was no talk about it for a long time, and she didn't. I felt like I get the feeling she didn't realize what she had done, and so now to bring it back to life and see that the Globe was excited about it, and it would be neat if she was here to see that, but the process might have been difficult.
Yeah, the editor-in-chief of the Globe wrote the foreword for the catalog, which we're launching with a catalog celebration and panel on the 25th of June. I'm looking for like a date check. Thanks. I usually bring a cheat sheet. The 25th of June, which is also our annual general meeting. So those of you who are members in the room or just, are curious about audited statements, you can come on in at 6. We do a nice wrap up of the year before, looking back at some of the wonderful things that have happened. But yeah, really incredible writing in that publication. And I mean, I was struck actually by your question because in there, or is it, anyway, yeah, I think I've seen you write, what would Jean think about this? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I was like, oh, I know what she doesn't know.
I mean, she was proud of my work, but she didn't see this. And she gave me I think we were moving her from the, maybe the house to the condo, or I don't know. In one of her moves, she went from the house to a condo and condo to an apartment. In one of the moves, when we were struggling with all this stuff, I said, "Mom, do you want me to?" She had boxes and boxes and boxes of Elizabeth Thompson. I said, "Do you want me to take these home and organize them?" And because they weren't organized, and she said, "Yeah, take them." Organize them, do something with them, write a book. So I often wonder, did she know? Was she trying to tell me? You know, did she I mean, if she told me to do something with them, write a book, she must have known that all these things, she couldn't forget that all the Jenny letters were there. So did she think it was an interesting story that she wanted to carry on? Who knows? Who knows? We don't need to know.
It's fun to wonder. Yeah. You, it sounds like you've got a task list from this audience. You've got a play and a book.
When am I going to publish what?
I mean, the catalog's coming out.
Yeah, the catalog's coming out. Yeah. I actually have been writing about it. It's true. Yeah, about the whole process. That's what I did actually when the whole thing became really
emotional and difficult. I sat down and started writing, and just writing everything I remember, my experience and all of that. It really helped put it in perspective. There.
Thanks, everyone. I think we're going to wrap it up there. And I will do my due diligence to thank our funders, the Ontario Arts Council, the Canada Council for the Arts, and the City of Peterborough. I also want to thank all of the staff and our volunteers and board members, Sumit, Rick. I won't thank you, but JoEllen Brydon. And I really thank all of the voice actors and JoEllen. Thanks so much. It's just continue to be such a pleasure. So.